So YouTube, thank you all so much for all the interest that you've shown in my videos about the hallucinations that I was having about Five Nights at Freddy's. That was pretty amazing and embarrassing all at once. I was so terrified of a video game because it was causing me such horrible hallucinations. I've been seeing them since I was a kid, but these were the first ones that were really scary. But, the main deal is that I eventually got past it. I wove my dream catcher. They stopped showing up in my dreams, and once I showed a little bit of strength and courage and took the covers off of the windows and the mirrors, they stopped tormenting me, and it was over. But that wasn't the end of my mental health journey for this year. I am aware that it's Mental Health Awareness Day. I just learned that this morning, and it's quite a coincidence because I just got released from Doctor's Behavioral Health Psych Ward. I was 5150'd last week, and they held me for 5 days, when they would normally hold someone for 72, and I'm sure I'll get to that at some point. But the main thing is that what happened with Five Nights at Freddy's at the end of August was a drop in the bucket compared to the things that I've been through and seen this month. My sister and I, who have been living together for 8 months, we had an argument really for the first time, and tempers flared, and I wound up kicked out on the street with my fiance. And I've dealt with homelessness before, but in San Francisco, where there are resources, and here there really are none. And in moving those boxes up and down the stairs so quickly, I think I injured my back really badly. So in the same day, I became homeless and crippled and wound up in a wheelchair. And then, well, to make a long story short, as far as friends and family goes, my health and mental health problems were so severe that there wasn't really anybody who wanted to deal with me, and I wound up unwelcome in a lot of people's homes, and I wound up in a situation where I was having to sleep on the cold concrete behind the abandoned theater, and it's really incredible that that would happen to me because all my life, every career path I've taken, it's always been in nonprofit social services. I worked to end hunger at the Atra Food Bank for 2 years. I worked for 2 years with the Community Housing Partnership in San Francisco, desk clerking the low-income housing projects for the mentally disabled and seniors and the drug lords and schizophrenics and all the people who got tossed out of the asylum when they were, when those shut down. And I had to walk through the Tenderloin at midnight to get to my evening shift that went from 12 to 8. And I dealt with all those people, and they all loved me. And I've always just, not to brag, but I've always had a spirit of compassion about that sort of thing. And the fact that I wound up as homeless, crippled refuse that nobody even wanted to give 32 cents to at one point, just, it hurt, I think, because my mental health problems were so severe, and nobody wanted to help me out with them because it wasn't a physical problem. People really only started showing interest in it when I started using the wheelchair a week later, 2 weeks later, after getting kicked out after a seizure from a withdrawal of Xanax and all kinds of things. And throughout it all, my bipolar, my mania has gone through the roof. The insomnia has been nearly unlivable. And my post-traumatic stress disorder, three things of which triggers are yelling and physical pain, because yelling would always lead to physical pain. My mother was very abusive, and I don't want to get into that story right now. It's ugly, and you don't want to hear about it. But essentially, I wound up with dissociative identity disorder, which is the more politically correct and less common name for multiple personalities, which is a disorder that's very, very rare and rarely understood, at least as far as I've seen in my life and journey, and that's why I've kept it under my hat for 11 years. I've never spoken about it. I'm sure I started dissociating when I was 7. I started understanding that the dissociation was happening and getting to know my alters at 14. I'm 25 now, and I haven't brought it up recently on my mental health awareness channel or on my Twitter or really much of anywhere, mainly because it's so stigmatized, and also because I haven't had to deal with that specific trauma, mechanism, disorder, what have you, in the last several years because my stress level hasn't been high enough. And usually, even when my stress level does come high enough, that there are like one or two that will come out to help me, and then they'll go away. But at this point, all 7 of them are active because of the homelessness and the 10 levels screaming, sweating, vomiting level of pain I was having in my back. I was having so many panic attacks. I finally got this RV, so we weren't sleeping in a tent anymore. Thank God it's California, or we'd be popsicles by now. And I have a place to live now, I have a home, and I'm working on my Social Security case, but my other trigger, I can't even remember which triggers I mentioned. I also have memory problems, but I always forget to mention that, which is kind of ironic. But, my triggers for my PTSD are yelling and pain. And I was in a situation where I was around a lot of people who were so stressed out that they couldn't keep their voice levels down. And it happened for the last time, and I flipped out so bad. I started beating the side of the RV with my cane, and I got so scared of myself that I was afraid it would become a domestic abuse issue when I turned myself, and I wound up 5150'd because some of my alters got violent and angry with the way that we were treated and abused at the hospitals, discharged without help, without medicine for my back 3 times in the emergency room, and he just lost it. He did something bad, and I wound up in the psych ward, and I take full responsibility for the actions of any of my alters, and that's how you can kind of tell the scapegoaters in the Genuine article that a scapegoater will blame everything they do wrong. Well, it was this altar, or it was that altar. But no. If your altar does something, put yourself or others in danger, it's because you're not doing something right to take care of them. You're not seeking help. You're not getting assistance. You're not taking care of them. You're not listening to them. You're not giving them what they need to be healthy and to eventually learn how to work with you as a team and how eventually to integrate, which is going to be a long road because they've all finally woken up, all of them for the first time in 4 or 5 years. And at this point, it's just important for me to be able to get the word out and explain that when you have mental disabilities, you fall through the cracks. Sometimes you almost die because of it, because of the neglect and the unawareness of how these disabilities and disorders and trauma, chemical imbalances, all these things, how they work. I got the cocktail of genetically, I got dissociative identity disorder, I got depression mostly. I got depression from my dad's side of the family and bipolar, and I got the PTSD from the abuse, and I have so many problems, but I pursue them. I come after them with a machete and a smile. I don't sit and let life take me for a ride. I take it for a ride. I worked so hard at the food bank as a volunteer coordinator, program manager. I had 400 volunteers reporting directly to me, 50 food distribution sites, 4,000 families I was feeding the community every month. I was processing stacks of federal paperwork this high every month, and I oversaw and supervised the front desk team, the hospitality, intakes, reception, filing paperwork. I was in charge of all of that, and I flourished despite my memory problems, which I solved by writing everything down. My dissociation, which my alters pretty much solved by writing everything down so I don't forget what they did. My PTSD, I control that with medication, with therapy, with meditation. Not just medication, but meditation is the key to keeping yourself calm when your mania is so strong that you have panic attacks, and when your depression is so strong, you use that self-control, that conviction that I am important, and it does matter whether I go out the door in the morning. People are depending on me, and I get out the door anyway, even if I have to cry an hour before I do. I kick ass. I am not disabled. I am challenged. I have many challenges in my life I have overcome. If I can do it, so can you. And that's what I would like to make you aware of on Mental Health Awareness Day. So, get online and tell your story, but don't fall into the victim mindset. Don't sit there and tell me there's this, and this wrong with me, and that's why I can't do this thing. You tell me there's this, and this problem in my life that I have to overcome, and what you can do anyway. That's what I want you to do. Join me. Together, we will stand strong. Because it's the crazy people who change the world.